Good morning, everyone. It is an exciting day today. Val is definitely shining down on us. Such a historic moment for us in so many ways. And I'm so glad to see all of you here ready to celebrate this momentous occasion. I'd like to call the woman who was behind making sure that this street would be named after one of Milwaukee's most loved women. I'd like to call up Alderwoman Milele Cox.
Being short, I get the microphones all in my face. Good afternoon. Thank you. We are here to celebrate the Honorable Val Phillips, so I know we got more energy than that. Let's try it again. Good afternoon. As was mentioned, I am Milele A. Cox. I have the honor and the privilege of representing the 6th Aldermanic District. And I would not be here if it were not for Val Phillips. We know there is a long list of the many firsts that Val was able to accomplish. The one that has impacted my life the most is her kicking open the doors to City Hall to be the first African American and the first woman to ever sit on Milwaukee's Common Council. So let me give you a little history. While in the history of this city, there have been over 1,000 men who have served as aldermen or council members. There have only been 15, do you hear me, 15 women who have served in that position. I am the 14th woman. When I was elected in 2008, I remember Val came to our inauguration and she walked with me back over to my new office. And in 2008, I was the only woman out of 15 members. And she began to tell me stories of her being the only woman on the council and how she dealt with it. And as we walked into my office, which was the smallest office down there with a big old pillar in the middle, I felt some kind of way about it until she began to tell me the story of how when she first started, they didn't even have offices at City Hall, and how they later created those offices, and she got the smallest one. Because there were so many aldermen, they had to pair up in the rooms, and no one wanted to pair with her. So she said, I just said, hey, I'm a woman anyway. I got women things to do. I don't need y'all in the office with me. So give me the small office so I can just take it on my own. So I served for 4 years in that office with a feeling of honor, having shared those 4 walls with her. As I continue to serve and have served for the last 10 years, I remember not just that conversation, but so many more through the years that she shared with me. I also stand before you as the youngest woman ever elected to Milwaukee's Common Council at 30. But the woman I beat in age was Val Phillips. She was 32 when she got elected. She was the youngest woman ever elected to the Common Council before I was. So it's plenty of Val stories that I could sit here and share with you, and I'm sure everyone in the crowd has one or two of the way that she has impacted our lives so much. So one of the things that Val wanted, she wanted deeply, was for 4th Street to be named after her. And for those of you who don't know the history, she chose a few reasons why she chose 4th Street. Because on her passing, a lot of people said, oh, we should do North Avenue, we should do Capitol, we should do Walnut, we should every street in the book. And I said, no, we are doing 4th Street. We are doing 4th Street because it's what Val wanted. And the 4 reasons she gave for wanting it was this. She grew up going to church at St. Mark's when it was on 4th Street. She went to the school right behind us, 4th Street. She got married at St. Mark's. Her and Dale Phillips got married at St. Mark's when it was on 4th Street. And 4th Street is adjacent to Dr. Martin Luther King Drive, who she considered a dear friend, an ally in the civil rights movement. So it was no question for me what street I was going to fight for to become the Val Phillips Vel R. Phillips Avenue. Additionally, something Miss Phillips was very clear personally to me about was she wanted the street to go all the way from Capitol to St. Paul. Let me say that again, from Capitol to St. Paul. That was deeply important to her because she said, and I quote, "This city did Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. an injustice by not allowing his street to go all the way through." So when she had formed a street name team and had people who were trying to help make it happen, and she came to myself, Alderman Hamilton, and Alderman Kovac, and there's some things we tried, and unfortunately we weren't able to do it while she was living. But I have to say, upon her passing, I give so much great credit to my colleagues, to the community, to so many stakeholders who rallied behind and in support of. This is like a day of completion for me because it's like the one thing she asked for that we didn't deliver. So I am so proud to stand before you today being able to deliver, not just because of her request, because of what I believe it means for this community, this city, this state, and even this nation. Because although she is our homegrown jewel, the achievements that she was able to make have impacted the nation and the world. As I look at the faces out here in this here today, it's people who've been impacted in so many different ways and levels that I couldn't even begin to explain. But with her life of service, she never hesitated to be a helpmate to all of us. So naming this street is just one small piece of a thank you in her honor and in her memory. And as you drive up and down it or take trolley rides down it later today, and as you bring your children down it, and as it stays as a street for years to come, I would hope that these stories of Val and her impact on this city, this nation, this country, and your lives continue to be told so that her legacy goes on and is continued. And thank you all for being here today in this celebration. I at this time want to bring up the mayor of this great city, Mayor Tom Barrett. Of course, you know, us aldermen got together and got enough support for the 4th Street, but none of it would have happened if it were not for the support of Mayor Tom Barrett. So I bring forth Mayor Barrett.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderwoman. Good morning. The sun is shining today, and I'm proud to be here today, and I want to thank Alderwoman Coggs for leading the charge on the Common Council. It's important. I see Alderman Stamper, I see Alderman Kowski here as well. I'm sure there are other aldermen I'm missing, so I apologize for that, but it's important for us to recognize the work that they did. And I want to start out talking about Vel's youth, because as Alderman Cox said, she was 32 when she was first elected. But there's a story that I tell, and I'm telling this story because in the last 10 years of her life, Vel said to me numerous times, "Please tell that story again." She was always good at letting us know what she wanted us to do, like the street naming, but she liked this story, so I'm going to share a story that involves me with her. I grew up here in Milwaukee on the west side, and back in the 1960s, I was a paper boy. 1967, 1968, and so I delivered my papers, and I read the paper a lot. And I kept reading about this Vel Phillips, this Vel Phillips, this Vel Phillips. And as a young boy, 13 years old at that time, I was convinced of two things about Vel Phillips. One, she was very, very powerful. And second, she was very, very old. That was the part that she liked. Because again, this is well over 50 years ago, and she was a young woman at the time. But for a 13-year-old boy, she seemed like she could have been 100 years old. Later in life, I would say that now, here we are, 30, 40, 50 years later, and she looks younger than I do. And there was a lot of truth to that as well, because we know that she kept her beauty all the way into her 90s. And it wasn't just her physical beauty, it was her inner beauty. And I think that's what we all appreciate more than anything, is her inner beauty. her amazing ability to be incredibly effective, being very polite, being very graceful, and being very effective. I mean, she had it all. She had it all. And she never suffered fools. She always made sure you knew what you wanted. And so when the alderwoman was talking about having the street named after her, yes, there's no question. We all knew that she wanted a street named after her. And the challenge was, okay, how do you do it with the rules we have for living beings and for being alive? What do you do? What street should it be? And I think we probably went through a dozen different streets talking about, is this the right street to do? And it had to be significant. I think that's what we all agreed. It had to be significant. So when Alderwoman Cox talks about the length of the street, she's right on. This had to be something important. And in all the time that I am mayor, this is without a doubt the most significant street renaming that we have had. Without a doubt, and it should be, because without a doubt, she's the most significant person who's been involved in our community really for our lifetime. And so, as I drove over here, and I drove past Meineke and Knapp and all these streets, and I'm thinking, who are these streets named after, right? Let's face it, that's what we think of when we go down many of these streets. Who was this person? Who was this person? Every person here today has the honor of having known Vel Phillips. And we were honored to live in her presence, in her time, and to see what she accomplished at the local level, on the bench, at the state level, in the community, and most of all, in our hearts. So thank you all for being here today to honor a woman that we all love and respect, Vel Phillips. Thank you very much.
I got to bring the mic down after the mayor. Thank you, Mayor, for your comments. I would be remiss if I did not recognize all of the elected officials that I see in the crowd. I see those who represent not only the city, the state, and Congress. So I ask that if you are an elected official, please raise your hand or stand up if you're seated. You can stand. I also know we have a number of people running for office, as well as judges. Thank you again for coming out today. As everyone has mentioned before, Val holds a lot of titles, not only being a trailblazer, not only being a first of many, but she also holds the title of mom. So I ask that her son, Michael Phillips, come to the stand now to also speak.
Love you too. Vel R. Phillips, my mother. It's interesting that, is this on? Can you hear me? It's interesting that we're naming a street after my mother because she was not the best driver, let me tell you. When I was a young boy, we got a ride, my brother and I, down to the City Hall. My mom was driving. And I don't know if you know, I'm sure you do, there's a yellow line in the middle of the street. The yellow line is traffic on one side goes one way and traffic on the other side goes the other way. It is not to straddle. Right? There are a number of people here who, in her later life, I'm sure, understood my mother as a passenger in their car. And she appreciated and loved that. I want to thank Malele Cogs. If not for Malele, we would not be here today. All of the hours, all of the hard work that she has put in to make this happen are truly appreciated. Malele, bless your heart. There was a substitute ordinance that they sent to me in order for my to take a look at it, review it, and it went through a number of firsts, and I'm sure that people here have all heard that litany of firsts, so I'm not going to go through them today. But, and that maybe someone else will, I don't know, but I'm not going to do that. It did sort of catalog my mother's career as a student, a public servant, and a civil rights pioneer. I would simply add to what they recorded in that legislative document that my mother's social significance has rebounded in recent years through the Wisconsin Public Television's production and airing of a 2015 documentary. It's called Vel Phillips' Dream Big Dreams. And if anyone's not seen it, it's still, I believe, on their website. It does give you an idea of my mother's life and her significance, her impact from start to finish. It's a very good production. I can tell you that not a week passes without a request for my mother's appearance, either by telephone, in person, or via Skype, from some Wisconsin grade school class. I get calls from Rhinelander, Dane County, Eau Claire, all around the state. Grade schoolers wanting my mom to either appear or speak to them or an interview. Small kids. Each one seeks her story. Unfortunately, my mother's life has passed away, but I would say that her significance remains as strong today as it ever was, considering some of the, let's just say, some of the challenging environments for race in this country. This renaming, it suffuses with permanence Milwaukee's commemoration of her homegrown civil rights icon, a woman, Vel R. Phillips, who fought for the freedoms not only of Milwaukee's minority citizens, but for all of her citizens. Thank you.
Now I would ask that Lilo Allen come and give us a word.
Oh man, I'm much shorter than everybody that was on this stage. I'm gonna do this. How y'all feeling? Good, good. Thank y'all for sharing this space with me. I wasn't prepared to perform. I was actually just working in my pop-up shop. So I'm the owner of Papyrus and Charms and also a poet. And I'm just so happy to be here. Thank y'all for sharing the space. What I do know about Vel Phillips' legacy is that she taught us that we all have a shared struggle and that we all have a foot in that race to civil rights and to equality and equity and dignity for everybody. So I'm just going to share a piece that's about being a magical black girl. And so it's called Hair Grease. I hope y'all like it. Before Frank Lucas, black girls had that blue magic. Scalps shiny like eyes on penny candy dishes over your grandmother's house. You knew you were leaving with a pocket full of strawberry print wrappers, and you never knew where she got them from, yet you never bothered to ask her. I remember being with my cousin and me listening to TLC. She gelled my edges down with less jam, and jam we did, arguing over our favorite members of Immature. We were so immature. We laughed and then we cried, or whether I cried because she started my braids off too tight. I would reach my hands up to my head like a prayer, asking God for the pain to be over soon. I pretended to scratch like I had that itch in my back, but really I was checking to see how many sections she had left to braid. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Really, I was checking to see how many sections she had left to braid. Man, I miss those braids. Man, I miss being a little girl from the north side, unaware that she was from the rough side of town, 37th and Center. And we was trays all day while we played all day. Black babies performing miracles like Jesus or Neo by dodging bullets all day. We ran astray until we was told to take our butts in the house by the street lights. Never had to be told twice. This was common knowledge. So technically, since shorties, we been speaking light and shine like the sun we did, because before Frank Lucas, black girls had that blue magic. We would sit in between our mama's legs, and it was like being born again. And she was Moses. She was an artist, and she transformed your field full of knots into a river of barrettes. The supreme architect, she literally changed your geography. And how godlike was she, because mama knew that her hands held the power to mold you into the woman you didn't know you would become. Mama knew that if you moved too quick, you just might get burned, so she cursed us heavy and wielded curling irons like weapons every time our heads would turn. Mama always taught us to sit up straight, eyes forward, and wait for the day when little black girls whose scalps shone like the pavement after downpour realized that blue magic made way for the black magic that we now hold it down for. Thank you all so much for sharing this space with us. Thank you.
All right, you know we can do better than that. Thank you, Lilo. I will now remember my black magic, my blue magic every time. And I will also remember, Michael, what the yellow line means. I have a whole new vision as I drive down the street. Now I'd like to bring to the podium Jasmine Johnson. She is the first Val Phillips Trailblazer awardee.
Good morning, Milwaukee. What an amazing day to be on such a historic corner for an iconic individual. First and foremost, thank you to the Alderwoman Malele A. Cogs of the 6th District, and to all of the dignitaries and elected officials here today, and specifically to Attorney Michael Phillips and the entire Phillips family. Thank you not only for being here today, but thank you for sharing your mother with each and every one of us. You know, Alderwoman Cogs started off her words and remarks this morning by talking about she wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Honorable Vel Phillips. But the truth of the fact is, neither one of us would be here without her. And so, even though she stood small in frame, she was mighty in intellect, mighty in vision, and mighty in moral greatness. In an era of time where, even in today, it appears that the moral compass of America is of question. And whether it was coming encounter with her at NAACP meetings, at other events throughout the community, there was a specific question that every time she saw me, she would ask. Are you doing what you're supposed to do? Are you doing your part? And the last encounter that we had and we shared was actually at Girls' Day at City Hall, another iconic and epic event that the Alderwoman has put together over the last several years down at City Hall, giving young ladies an entry point to understand the life of public service and other careers throughout the city. And the first thing I did when I walked up to her in that moment, after all of these years of her asking me those two questions, the first thing I said and how I greeted her was, I am doing what I am supposed to do, and I am doing my part. And she looked at me and she said, well, you finally got it. And so as I watched her growing up, because I was one of those grade schoolers down at Golda Meir, fielding my history reports based on her and had to refresh it every single year because there was still something of one of her first to learn from year to year. So even moving into womanhood and being the mother of an African-American black boy in the city, being able to pull from her grace and her class, how she led in effectiveness, but still had the grace to raise an amazing set of young men. And so I still look forward to those moments that I can always pull from, whether it's working collectively in this community to stop a Dollar Tree in Bronzeville that now stands. I think in those moments of planning, we all channeled our inner Vel Phillips energy. And I challenge every one of you to ask yourself daily, as we walk in those footsteps that she trailblazed the way for, are you doing what you're supposed to do? And are you doing your part? Thank you so much for joining us here as we are on the corner of Vel R. Phillips Avenue and North Avenue. Thank you.
And before we end this program, to go over to the corner to unveil the new Val Phillips Street, I'd like to ask Lele Cogs to come back to the stage. Okay, I guess I'm passing the mic.
A couple of house cleaning things before I say the final words. I want to say thank you to the sponsors. You know, we decided to do this during Bronzer Week because Bronzer is an iconic place in the city of Milwaukee for African American arts, culture, and commerce. So it only made sense to honor her during this time. And because 4th Street rolls right through the middle, and her old elementary school is right in the middle. And we stand on a corner by America's Black Holocaust Museum, which I know she supported. And in October, when they opened their doors, there's a whole exhibit dedicated to Val Phillips in there. I want to thank you to the sponsors of today. Thank you to Mr. Benson over at the Wisconsin Black Historical Museum who supplied the exhibit that we see here today. Thank you to the city of Milwaukee. Thank you to Visit Milwaukee. Thank you to the Milwaukee Bucks. Thank you to Alex Lazary, because from noon to 3, you all will have an opportunity because of the graciousness of Mr. Lazary himself, to ride on a trolley up and down 4th Street. And we will have, I believe, one of the griots from America's Black Holocaust Museum, Mr. Brad Pruitt himself, on board to help with some details and history of Val Phillips as you ride from St. Paul to Capitol Drive. Thank you to Sam Belton and the band. They'll be playing when we're done here today. We also have catered food upstairs, and if you have trouble getting up the stairs, there is an elevator inside that we have someone to escort you through so that this celebration can continue even beyond the words here on this stage today. So the other sponsors are all named King Drive Bid and others who are all named there. Just want to say thank you to them. Today, right before we started, I got a call from family, real urgent, about my Uncle Spencer, who wanted to be here today, and that they had heard that he was in a car crash. So much of my time leading up to this was spent furiously looking through my phone trying to figure out who I could call to get an answer if he was okay. And right before we started, I got a call from him that he was on his way here, but his car was totaled, but he's fine. So I say that to you today because as I stand here on Vel R. Phillips Avenue, as we are able to honor her now that she has passed, it makes me think of two things. One is always be thankful, grateful, and to share that gratitude with people while they are here. Because you never, ever know when they might not be. So that's number one. Number two is, for all of the firsts that Val was able to accomplish, there are still so many left to be done. For as much as we look to her for strength, guidance, wisdom, and her works, we should use it as a source of inspiration for us in whatever lane we're in. She did it through public office and public service. Others may be able to do it through education, through other things. We should be making our mark as well. One day there can be a street named after you. One day there can be a crowd of people who have stories to tell about the influence that you've had on their lives. So every time you come on Val R. Phillips Avenue, I want you to be reminded not only of her greatness, but the greatness that exists within each and every one of us and what's possible. We will have trolley rides following this. We also will have some raffles, giving away some complimentary street signs. And before we move over to the actual street sign and take it down, I just wanted to bring Michael Phillips up. And I also wanted to bring my colleagues at the city. I know several aldermen are present. I never would have been able to do this without them. Alderman Stamper, I think I saw Alderman Bukowski, any other aldermen that may be present. Michael, I wanted to give you a complimentary copy of the Val R. Phillips Avenue sign. Tim, if you could bring one of those over. Or Shannon. we'll be giving away a couple of more of these for some lucky people who are here today. So make sure to get your raffle ticket. At this time, if you could all join us as we move over to the street corner over here. Thank you guys for coming.
Rise!